Aleichem, friends. I'd like to discuss an issue of competing concerns in halachah and how we answer and resolve these competing concerns. But first, I'd like to just say that I'd like to dedicate this discussion to the refuah shlema for Rav Aharon Rakeffet, Aharon Yitzchak ben Yehudis, who unfortunately has coronavirus. He should have refuah shlema, continue in strength and in health to teach Torah ad 120 shana. So the latest issue of the Journal of Halachah and Contemporary Society, the RJJ Journal, is devoted to issues of coronavirus, which of course has been a continued issue in halacha and in life in general. Yuz Hashem should stop soon. So they have a number of interesting articles. One article is a translation of short responsa by Rav Yisrael Reisman, Shlit of Torah Das, Yeshiva Torah Das, and Shul in Flatbush. One of his tshuvas discusses the following issue. And it's I'd like to just discuss not halacha l'maisa, but in the spirit of pilpul, how to deal with it. So his question is as follows: a rabbi, there was a 3-day yontif for Pesach, and Tufshin Pei in 2020, and one of the rabbis needed to have his cell phone on to answer questions of pikuach nevesh. Some of the life-threatening medical issues, fortunately, was relevant at the time and still remains relevant. He needed to have his cell phone available, and over the 3-day yontif, the charge was going to probably run out. So the question was, should he recharge his phone on the second day of yontif? Right, yontif was Thursday, Friday, and then Shabbos came after that. Should he recharge his phone on Friday, which is yontif Sheini, which is a lower level, the rabbinic prohibition, or should he wait till it's run out or almost run out on Shabbos, as it most likely will be, and then recharge then, which is Shabbos is a biblical prohibition. Recharging, we can discuss whether that's biblical or rabbinic, but we'll assume that recharging is a worse prohibition to do it on Shabbos than to do on Yontif Sheini. So the question was, on Yontif Sheini, it wasn't urgent to recharge. On Shabbos, it would probably be urgent. So should he take the initiative, recharge on Yontif Sheini when it's a lesser prohibition, or should he wait till it's urgent on Shabbos and recharge it then? So Rabbi Reisman brought a proof from the Gemara in Rosh Hashanah, which discusses, it's a very clever proof, discusses someone on Rosh Hashanah who is in a place where there's no shofar, and there's no chazan or no machzer, so that to say Musaf on Rosh Hashanah is a special rabbinic enactment to say Malchios, Zichronos, and Shofros. And this person was in a place where he didn't have a machzer, so he couldn't say it himself. So should he go to another city where he knew he would have a machzer or a chazan who could say it for him, but no shofar? Or should he go to a city that had a shofar, but no machzer? Which should he choose? So the Gemara says, Shtei yaros, 2 cities, ba'achas tokin. In one, they blow the shofar, uv'achas, mevarchin. One, they say the brachas of Mosaf. Hochin l'makom shetokim. You should go to the place where they blow shofar, because blowing shofar on Rosh Hashanah is a mitzvah deraisa. It's a biblical obligation, as opposed to the brachos of Mosaf, which is only a rabbinic obligation. So hochin l'makom shetokin, ve'ein hochin l'makom shemevarchin. So it says the Gemara, well, obviously, pshita. So hadiraisa, hadirabanan. Of course, you're going to go to the place where you could do the biblical obligation. So it says the Gemara, lo tzricha. No, you need this teaching. The avagav, the havadai, the hasafik. Even though the city has a machzer, has a chazan for sure, the other city may or may not have a shofar. Still, you go to the suffix, to the place where you might be able to hear shofar. That gives precedence over the definite brachos. So we see here that a definite rabbinic obligation is lower than a suffix, a possible biblical obligation. Suffix deraisa takes precedence over a vadai derabanan. So says Rabbi Reisman, so too on Yontif Sheini, it's a vadai. You'll violate Yontif Sheini if you recharge it. On Shabbos, it's a suffix. You may or may not. You'll wait and see. Does it need recharging on Shabbos or does it not? So that's a suffix deraisa. So you might say, wait for Shabbos to see. It's a suffix deraisa. Maybe you will need to recharge or maybe you won't. So he says, no, the suffix deraisa takes precedence over the Vadai Derabanan, and therefore you should recharge it on Yontiv Sheini, even though you're definitely violating it. It's still Safek Deraisa takes precedence, and we don't wait till Shabbos. That's his psak, and then he goes through. Some people ask some questions on it, and he answers those. So I'd like to bring some other ideas into the picture, mix it up a little bit. So there's a shaila that was asked in the late 1800s that is discussed in the Stei Chemed. Stei Chemed in Hilchos Yom Kippurim, which is in the 12th volume. So it's Yom Kippurim, Siman Aleph, Os Yud. So the following shaila, I remember hearing it discussed by Rav Meir Tursky, my Rebbe in Yeshiva. I don't remember what context. I was there for many years, in the shir for a number of years. But the shaila is as follows. Someone was at shaky health. He could definitely fast for a day. The doctor said you could fast for a day, but then you'd need to recover for a while. And it's not clear whether you could fast within a week or two of that. Should he fast and some Gedalia, in which case he probably won't be able to fast on Yom Kippur, or should he eat on some Gedalia, and that way he'll have the strength, he'll be able to fast on Yom Kippur. Some Gedalia is a fast which is of rabbinic origin. It's Midivrei Kabbalah, maybe stronger than rabbinic, but not biblical. Midivrei Kabbalah. Yom Kippur is not only Min HaTorah, not only is it biblical, it's an Issacharius. It's one of the strictest biblical obligations that there are, not to eat on Yom Kippur. So should the rabbinic obligation that comes first take precedence, or should the biblical obligation that comes later take precedence? So the Stei Chemed quotes the Dayan of Mezrich in his Oel Moshe, who discusses it, and he brings a proof from the Oel Moshe brings a proof from the tshuva of the Radbaz. Tshuva of the Radbaz is quoted in the Be'er Heitev in Siman Sadi Os Yud Aleph, but if you just look there, like in any sefer that collects sources, be very careful. Always look it up. The Maramakum is a little off. He quotes it from Chelik Aleph Siman Yud Gimel of the Tshuvas of the Rabaz. It's actually Chelik Daled Siman Yud Gimel. Maybe he had a different printing, and there it was Chelik Aleph. In the current standard printing, it's the Chelik Daled Siman Yud Gimel. The Rabaz discussed the shaila that came up in Egypt in his time. Someone was in jail, and he prevailed on the Muslim authorities to give him 1 day of furlough to pray together in a synagogue, in a synagogue with a minyan. The question was, he only had 1 day he'd be able to go to shul. Which day should he choose? Should he wait for Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah, wait for... So the Radbaz says, some guy's talking, he's clearing, he's discussing. Should it be Yom Kippur, which is the holiest day of the year? Should it be Purim, where there's Pirsumei Nusa, you're publicizing the miracle? So that's also a big Inyan. Says the Radbaz, no. Immediately go to shul. The minute the first opportunity you have, you do the mitzvah. Ein ma'avirin ala mitzvahs. If a mitzvah comes to you, you don't skip it. Don't say, you know what? There's another mitzvah that's coming in 3 months, which is more important. Who knows if you'll be alive? Who knows what will happen? Maybe you'll be sick. Maybe the prison warden will change his mind. You have no control over it. So immediately, ein ma'avirin ala mitzvahs. The first opportunity you have to go to shul, go. Spend that day dominating shul and come back. Don't worry about the future mitzvahs. Do the mitzvahs that comes to you. It's Radbaz. So this Radbaz creates an upheaval, a furor in the Achronim, particularly because of Chacham Tzvi. So the Radbaz lived in the 1600s in Egypt, in Sfaz. He was born in Spain. In the early 1700s, the Chacham Tzvi Ashkenazi in Amsterdam. So he published a tshuva in Chacham Tzvi Simin Kuf Vav, where he challenged the Radbaz with a brilliant proof. So the Chacham Tzvi points out there's a Gemara in Menachos Daf Mem Tes, which discusses the strange situation in which there's a shortage of animals for the korban, for the sacrifice in the temple. They have enough animals that you could bring the korban musaf today. If there's a special day and there's a musaf, an additional offering on Rosh Chodesh, Yontiv, you could bring the korban musaf today, but then you won't have enough for the korban tamid, the standard morning sacrifice, the next day. Or skip the musaf today and bring the korban tamid. And the Gemara sets it up as a question: which is more important? Is the korban musaf, which is mekudesh, is more holier, special, more special? Is mekudesh more important, or is tadir more important? Tadir is more frequent. Consistency is very important and has a very high priority in the Jewish religion. So the korban tamid, which is brought every single day, twice a day, so should that get priority over the special sacrifice, or should the special sacrifice get priority over the korban tamid? So the Chacham Tzvi says, what's missing from this conversation in the Gemara? What's missing is they don't say, do the first korban that comes up. Korban musaf comes up first, do that. That's not discussed in the Gemara at all. So therefore, says the Chacham Tzvi, the Radbaz is wrong. You can't say ein mavirin al mitzvahs, and we have to look to see which is the more important mitzvah to do, and then you do that one even if it's later. It's a very difficult argument to make because it's an argument from absence. What's missing from the Gemara is brilliant. You have to have all the shots at your fingertips. You have to think that way. It's kind of like a Shagas Aryeh would ask that kind of question. We usually don't paskin like the Shagas Aryeh because an argument from absence, as brilliant as it may be, you're setting yourself up for everyone in the future to try to come up with a reason. You're saying there's no reason. There's no reason the Gemara doesn't say in mavirin al mitzvos. So, but creativity is boundless, and someone can come up with a reason why. Maybe there is a reason why it wasn't mentioned, and kachava. That's what the Achronim like to do. They like to try to find a reason why the Gemara does not mention in mavirin al mitzvos, or why it doesn't apply there, but it does apply to the case of the Radbaz. So like I said, the Bayer Heitev and Simon Sadi, Osid Aleph, he quotes one explanation, one reason. So you could say that with a person, we're concerned. If you wait too long, who knows what's going to happen? Nobody lives forever. Accidents happen, things happen. Maybe you won't be able to fulfill that second mitzvah. You say, I'll wait till Yom Kippur, I'll go to Shul on Yom Kippur. I'll wait till Purim, I'll go to Shul on Purim. Chalila, people get sick. You won't be able to. Maybe you won't even live that long. Who says you're going to live another 3 months? Another month? Even another week? Who says you're going to live another week? But at Tzibur, the congregation, all of Klal Yisrael brings the korban in the Beis HaMikdash. It's a Tzibur. Tzibur, we're not worried that they won't be around. Tzibur will continue. Baruch Hashem, Klal Yisrael has lasted for thousands of years and will continue. We have a haftacha, we have a promise from Hashem to Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Don't worry, the Tzibur will be there. So therefore, by a person we could be concerned about Misa, about death, or something else, and therefore, ein mavirin ala mitzvos. But by Tzibur, we're not so worried. And that's why the Gemara in Menachos doesn't say, do the first korban that comes, because they're talking about a Tzibur, the community. But by the Radbaz's question, maybe you would. And that's why, other reasons also, the Mishnah Berurah here in Simon Sadi says that the Sifkat and Chavches says that the Chai Adam and others and the Mishnah Berurah himself paskins not like the Chacham Tzvi, but like the Radbaz, do the first mitzvah that comes around. And in the case of the Stei Chemed, that would mean fast on Som Gedalia. And when Kippur comes, Yom Kippur comes. Don't worry about it. When it comes, it comes. And then you'll see what happens. And so too with recharging the phone. You could say the first mitzvah that comes is Yom Tov Sheini. So observe Yom Tov Sheini. And when Shabbos comes. And then you'll see. If you need to recharge, you recharge. If you don't need to recharge, you don't recharge. Ein ma'avirin ala mitzvahs. The first mitzvah to come to you is Yom Tov Sheini. You could say that. Sechemed quotes Peladika Rashi in Sukkah, Daf Chav Hey Amud Beis. So they're talking about if you remember from Chumash, so the Timei Mace. Why was this, a whole parsha of Pesach Sheni was mentioned? Because there were people who were impure and couldn't bring the Korban Pesach in the desert. And therefore, the Torah teaches that there's an opportunity a month later to bring the Korban Sheni. So why were they impure? Why were they tameh? So the Gemara discusses that, and Rashi says as follows. He's talking about Tamei Meis Mitzvah, and he says not necessarily a Meis Mitzvah. Meis Mitzvah a classic Meis Mitzvah is somebody who nobody is there to bury him. There's nobody there. he has no family, no relatives, or for whatever reason, the corpse is Chalila just lying out there in the field. Drop whatever you're doing. It's one of the highest priority of mitzvahs to bury that, to give that person a Jewish burial. Unfortunately, we have to make mitzvahs today. People who have no relatives or the relatives have no interest, and they're just sitting in some funeral parlor, just waiting to be buried. And there are opportunities of mitzvah even today. But the Rashi says that's not what the Gemara is talking about. The Gemara is talking about anyone who has a relative for whom a Kohen would become Tameh. So it's a mitzvah for you, for anybody, to be involved in the burial. So it says Rashi, the osik be mitzvah pater min mitzvah. If you're involved in the mitzvah of burying a relative, you're pater from any other mitzvah, including the mitzvah Korban Pesach. They became Tameh 7 days before Pesach, so they couldn't bring the Korban Pesach because they were impure. And even though this Tumah would prevent them from eating the Korban Pesach, which is, if someone does not eat the Korban Pesach, it's an Isser Karis. It's one of the strictest and strongest punishments that there is, and this mitzvah saseh of eating Korban Pesach is one of the only two that have the strength of an Isser Karis, that and getting a bris milah. So even still, a lower level of mitzvah that comes to you, such as burying a relative, you don't have to set that aside for a much stricter mitzvah that's coming in the future. Even within a week. Within a week, they would have to bring a Korban Pesach, which is an Isser Kares. And despite that, don't worry about that. Do the mitzvah that comes first. Seif Clement brings that as a proof to the Red Baz. You could answer that, so everybody in Klal Yisrael has to bring the Korban Pesach, which means nobody would become Tameh the week before that, which means that even if it's just a relative, anyone who passes away within a week of Korban Pesach, or the week of when the Korban Pesach has to be brought, would have nobody, no Jew would be able to bury him. Which means not only would it just be the mitzvah of burying a relative, it would be the mitzvah of a meis mitzvah, because that person would have nobody to bury him, and therefore becomes a meis mitzvah, which has a extremely high priority. So maybe it's not a proof to any other mitzvah, which is of a lower priority. Rashi says mitzvah kala. So in that case, for them, it's a mitzvah kala. But if everybody observed it, it would be a mitzvah chamura of a meis mitzvah. So maybe that's not a proof for the Red Baz. The Sechemet also quotes the Gemara in Rosh Hashanah that Rabbi Reisman quotes, of you have to choose between hearing the brachos of Musaf or between shofar, and a Safek shofar, Safek deraisa, takes precedence over the Vadai brachos, the Vadai derabanan. Says the Sechemet, but the Ritva there explains that that's only talking about a city that every single year has a shofar. So it's a suffix, but it's a suffix with a chazaka. The chazaka is you're pretty certain that there's going to be a shofar. It's not a strong suffix. If it's a strong suffix, so maybe there's no proof from that Gemara in Rosh Hashanah. That's what the Sechemet says. It's only proof for a case where it's a karav levadai, almost certain there will be a shofar there. It's not a classic suffix. That's a ritva. So based on that ritva, so maybe it's not such a proof. On the other hand, if you see the phone is running out, so if it's a karav levadai, it's almost certain that it will need to be recharged on Shabbos, so maybe it does become more parallel. So I saw the Rabbi Yitzchak Zilberstein always has fascinating questions, strange questions. So he wrote a sefer many years ago. He wrote a sefer Torah Hayoledis about all the halachas of pregnancy and childbirth. And he has a very interesting, a following shaila, which is very relevant. In Perek Samech, it's a big sefer, a lot of questions. Perek Samech shaila dalid is a woman who, towards the beginning of her pregnancy, she has high blood pressure, and her gynecologist advised having an abortion to avoid pikuach nefesh question. Her blood pressure was such a problem that the gynecologist was worried she couldn't bring the baby to term. Her internist, however, disagreed and said maybe we could treat the high blood pressure with medication. Let's see what happens. They discussed it, the two doctors discussed it, and they advised the woman to try the medication, see what happens, and then they could discuss later whether they need to have an abortion or do something else. So the question was brought up, okay, that's what the doctors are saying, but maybe since she's at the beginning of her pregnancy and within the first 40 days, an abortion is a much lower level of prohibition than after 40 days. So maybe she should have an abortion now, a vadai abortion now during the 40 days, which is of a lower prohibition, rather than wait and see and possibly override a very chomer, very strict prohibition of an abortion after 40 days. Now, of course, any situation like this, you have to deal with the emotions involved. You have to know the people. You have to discuss a lot of different things. We're talking now just the technical aspect. Would it be better to have the abortion immediately within the first 40 days, the vadai iser kala, or wait and have the suffix iser chamor, see what happens? It's a serious question. Even though there are so many variables that we're not discussing this particular aspect of it. So Rabbi Yitzchak Zilberstein quotes the Netziv in his commentary on Bamidbar in Parshas Korach, Perek Yud Zayin, Pasuk Yud Aleph. So after the congregation, the group with Korach, the Adas Korach, rebelled against Moshe, Moshe was proven correct, and Hashem was bringing a plague on that group to kill them. Moshe Rabbeinu tells Aaron, bring a pan, take fire from the Mizbeach, and bring a ketoris, bring an incense offering into the midst of them, and that will chase away the magefa, the plague. The pasuk says Aaron does that, but in pasuk Yud Beis, Vayikach Aaron kasher diber Moshe, Aaron took it like Moshe said, Vayaretz al toch kahal, and he ran into the middle of the group. V'hinei heichel hanegev ba'am. The Magefa had already started. As in Netziv in his Hamek Davar, why did Aaron wait until the Magefa had already started? He knew it was coming. Why didn't he do it immediately? Why did he wait until the Magefa started? So says in Netziv, because Aaron thought maybe Hashem would have Rachamim and not bring the plague. And bringing a Ketoris outside of the Mishkan, outside of the Beis HaMikdash, is Asur. So it's mutter, you're allowed to do it because of Pikuach Nevesh, to save the lives. But he had faced the following question. Should he bring it immediately when there's no Pikuach Nefesh, because there could be Rachamim, or once the Magefa comes, then is Vadai Pikuach Nefesh, then he should do it. Should he wait until it's Vadai or not? Should he wait till it starts, till the Pikuach Nefesh? If you know a case of Pikuach Nefesh is coming, do you have to wait till it's literally life and death right now? Or you know it's coming, so prevent it. Prevent it. Aaron didn't prevent it. Why not? It says in the Siv, because it was a suffix. If it was a Vada, if it would definitely come, so you don't have to wait until it comes, prevent it immediately. But if it's a suffix, it may or may not come, so then you should wait. In a footnote, in his Harchev Dover, says in the Siv, halachah l'maaseh, mizeh yesh lomod be'yantiv shechal be'erev Shabbos. From this, we should learn if Yontiv is on Friday and then comes Shabbos. Uve Shabbos, yeah, in Yen Sakanas Nefashos, and we know on Shabbos is going to be Pikuach Nefesh situation. V'nitzrach lasos melacha beYontiv o b'Shabbos mishum Pikuach Nefesh. You have to do something to prevent the situation, to save the person on either Yontiv or Shabbos. Yontiv is not urgent. Shabbos it will be urgent. Im bar shetiyah hasakana b'Shabbos. If you know for sure it's going to come on Shabbos. It's better to do it early when it's a lower Isser on Yontiv than on when it's a stronger Isser on Shabbos, if you know it's definitely coming. But if it's not clear, it may or may not come. If it's a Savik, wait. We don't say Suffolk Isser Chomer of Shabbos overrides the Isser Kal of Yontiv. Isser Vadai of a Kal of Yontiv. Don't say that, says in the Siv. Rather, if it's Vadai, if it's definitely going to come, then go for the Isser Kal. If it's Suffolk, wait for Shabbos, then do the Isser Chomer. And so too says Rav Zilberstein, in the case of the abortion, if it was vadai, if she would definitely need an abortion at some point in her pregnancy, then do it in the first 40 days rather than wait till it's urgent. Aside from all the other reasons why you should not wait, if you know you're going to have to do it, why wait until it's an urgent life and death issue? Al halacha, you don't have to wait, and you shouldn't wait. You should do it when it's an Isser Kal. But if it's savik, maybe the medication will work. Maybe she'll get better. So if it's a savik, so then you wait, and you don't go for the Isser Kal, you go for the Isser Chomer. So based on that, I was thinking, I'm not disagreeing, Popula Alma, maybe we could say on the same thing to the recharging the cell phone. If it will definitely need to be recharged on at some point over the 3-day yontiv, that you'll have to violate something. So then violate the kal. Wait for you. Do it on yontiv Sheini rather than on Shabbos. But if it's a savik, then you don't do the Isser Kal. You wait till the Isser Chomer on Shabbos, and you recharge it then. Some things to think about. Not halachah l'maisa. Just tarahiv lilmod ani tzarich. So on that, again, I recommend the latest issue of the RJJ Journal, rjj.edu. If the website's not up right now, it should be up soon. And all the other many great articles, and also other tshuvas of Rabbi Yisrael Reisman, all of them, Rory. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.